Caligula, Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, known as Caligula, was born August 31st, 12 AD in Antium, Italy. The nickname Caligula meant little boots, from the miniature soldier's uniform he wore as a child in military camps. His father Germanicus was Rome's most beloved general, but died when Caligula was 7, possibly poisoned by Emperor Tiberius. Caligula became emperor at 24 and 37 AD. The first 7 months appeared promising. He ended treason trials, recalled exiles, and gave bonuses to soldiers. Then he fell seriously ill, with what historians suspect was encephalitis. When he recovered, his personality had fundamentally changed. He declared himself a living god, demanding statues in temples and appearing in public dressed as Jupiter. He built a bridge across the Bay of Naples, 3 miles long, just to ride his horse across it, wearing Alexander the Great's breastplate. The construction cost bankrupted the treasury within 2 years. Caligula opened a brothel in the imperial palace, forcing senators' wives into prostitution. He slept with all 3 sisters. Drusilla was his favorite. When she died, he made it capital punishment to laugh or bathe during mourning. He fed prisoners to wild animals when meat became too expensive for games. He once ordered an entire section of crowd thrown to lions because he was bored. His most famous insanity involved his horse, Incitatus, who had a marble stable, ivory manger, and jeweled collar. He allegedly planned to make the horse consul. On January 24, 41 AD, after 3 years and 10 months of rule, Praetorian guards stabbed him 30 times. He was 28 years old.
Nero, Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, was born December 15, 37 AD in Antium. His mother Agrippina poisoned Emperor Claudius with mushrooms to secure Nero's succession at age 16 in 54 AD. Initially guided by philosopher Seneca and Praetorian prefect Burrus, his first 5 years showed competent administration. Everything changed after he murdered his mother in 59 AD. He first tried poisoning her, then a collapsing boat, finally sending soldiers to stab her. As she died, Agrippina allegedly exposed her womb, saying, "Strike here, where I bore him." Free from restraint, Nero's true nature emerged. He kicked his pregnant wife Poppaea to death in 65 AD during an argument. He then married Sporus, a boy he'd castrated for resembling Poppaea, parading him as empress. He performed marriages with 2 other men, playing both husband and bride roles. During performances, he forced audiences to stay for hours. Women gave birth, and men faked death to escape. The Great Fire of 64 AD burned for 9 days, destroying 70% of Rome. Witnesses saw Nero's men starting new fires. He watched from his palace, playing lyre and singing about Troy's destruction. Using cleared land, he built his Domus Aurora, a 300-acre palace with a 120-foot statue of himself. To deflect blame, Nero targeted Christians. He covered them in animal skins for dogs to tear apart, crucified them, and burned them alive as human torches for garden parties. Facing military revolt in 68 AD, he fled Rome. His last words before suicide were, "What an artist dies in me." He was 30 years old.
Commodus. Marcus Aurelius Commodus Antoninus was born August 31st, 161 AD in Lanuvium. Son of philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius, he received the finest education possible. Unlike his father, who spent his reign defending frontiers, Commodus craved only personal pleasure and abandoned all frontier wars immediately upon succession in 180 AD. Commodus believed himself Hercules reincarnated. He renamed Rome Colonia Commodania, and months after himself, and demanded statues depict him in lion skin with club. He renamed the Roman people Commodanii. The Senate became Commodanian Fortunata Senate. Even the legions were renamed Commodanian. His obsession with gladiatorial combat consumed the empire's resources. He fought in 735 official contests, charging the treasury 1 million sesterces per appearance, more than a soldier's lifetime earnings. He killed disabled soldiers, amputees, and chained prisoners, calling them giants and monsters. He once killed 100 lions in a single day, then beheaded ostriches, waving their heads at senators as warning. Commodus kept a harem of 300 women and 300 boys. He sold government positions. A consulship cost 25 million sesterces. When funds ran low, he executed wealthy Romans for their estates. He renamed himself with 12 names, including Amazonius and Invictus, requiring their use in daily conversation under death penalty. On December 31st, 92 AD, his wrestling partner Narcissus strangled him in his bath on orders from his mistress Marcia, who discovered her name on an execution list. His death ended the Antonine dynasty and triggered civil war. The Senate immediately declared him a public enemy and restored Rome's original name.
Elagabalus. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, known as Elagabalus, was born around 203 AD in Emesa, Syria. His grandmother Julia Maesa orchestrated his rise by claiming he was Emperor Caracalla's illegitimate son. He became emperor at 14 in 218 AD, taking his name from the Syrian sun god Elagabal he'd served as priest. Elagabalus immediately imported his Syrian god to Rome, placing a black meteorite above Jupiter in the pantheon. He forced senators to watch him dance around the altar in silk robes and makeup. He married a Vestal virgin, whose vow-breaking traditionally meant being buried alive, claiming their children would be gods. His sexual behavior scandalized even libertine Rome. He prostituted himself in the palace, standing naked in doorways soliciting customers. He offered half the empire to any physician who could give him female genitalia. He married 5 women and 2 men within 4 years, including charioteer Heracles, who he called his husband. Elagabalus invented elaborate pranks that turned deadly. He released lions and leopards at dinner parties. Guests didn't know they were supposedly tamed. He smothered wedding guests under tons of rose petals dropped from ceiling panels. Several suffocated. He served food made of glass and wax, executing anyone who couldn't finish. His most grotesque innovation was the lottery of fate. Tickets promised either luxury or death. Winners received slaves or gold. Losers were executed by specific methods, eating themselves to death, being covered in honey for insects, or worse. On March 11, 222 AD, Praetorian Guard killed him and his mother, dragged their bodies through streets, and threw them in the Tiber. He was 18 years old.
Caracalla. Lucius Septimius Bassianus, later Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, called Caracalla after his Gallic hooded tunic, was born April 4, 188 AD in Lugdunum, Gaul. His father, Septimius Severus, groomed both him and brother Geta as co-emperors, but Caracalla harbored murderous jealousy from childhood. After Severus died in 211 AD, Caracalla ruled jointly with Geta for 11 months. He murdered Geta during a peace meeting in their mother's arms. As Geta bled out, Julia Domna held her dying son while Caracalla reportedly complained about getting blood on his toga. He then killed 20,000 of Geta's supporters, including children. Geta's name was erased from every monument, the Damnatio Memoriae. Caracalla idolized Alexander the Great pathologically. He created a 16,000-man phalanx using exact ancient equipment, marched Alexander's route, and poisoned his friend Festus for playing Hephaestion inadequately. In Alexandria, he gathered the city's youth claiming to form an Alexander honor guard, then massacred 20,000 of them because Alexandrians had mocked his height. He devalued Roman currency by 25% to fund military spending, causing economic collapse. His Antonine constitution granted citizenship to all free inhabitants, not from generosity, but to expand taxation. He built the massive baths of Caracalla using 9,000 workers daily for 6 years, executing architects when pillars seemed crooked. His paranoia led to constant executions. He killed his wife Plautilla, father-in-law Plautianus, and any senator who made eye contact. On April 8, 217 AD, while urinating on roadside near Carrhae, his guard Martialis stabbed him. Martialis' brother had been executed days earlier on Caracalla's whim. He ruled 6 years, 2 months.
Domitian. Titus Flavius Domitianus was born October 24, 51 AD in Rome. He became emperor in 81 AD after his brother Titus's suspicious death, possibly by Domitian's poisoning.
Unlike his father Vespasian and brother who showed moderation, Domitian immediately demanded to be called master and god. Domitian's paranoia exceeded all predecessors. He lined palace walls with polished moonstone to see reflections behind him. He executed senators for jokes, astrologers for unfavorable predictions, and historians for praising past republicans. A secretary was killed for helping a gladiator. Actors were crucified for gestures resembling mockery. His sexual sadism involved forcing witnesses. He made senators watch him with concubines, including his niece Julia, who died from his forced abortion. He personally depilated his lovers with hot shells. He collected flies in his study, stabbing them individually with a stylus for hours. When asked if anyone was with the emperor, guards replied, "Not even a fly." The Jewish tax became his obsession. He personally examined men's circumcisions in court, including 90-year-olds. Christians faced systematic persecution. He boiled John the Apostle in oil, though John supposedly survived. He revived Nero's practice of making Christians human torches. Domitian bankrupted Rome through games and palace construction. His Domus Augustana cost 30 million denarii, while soldiers went unpaid. He raised legionary pay by 33% without funds, then executed wealthy Romans for their estates. On September 18, 96 AD, palace staff assassinated him. His niece Domitilla, whose husband he'd executed, coordinated the plot. Even his wife Domitia participated. He was 44 years old.
Maximinus Thrax. Gaius Julius Verus Maximinus was born around 173 AD in Thrace. Standing allegedly 8 feet tall, likely severe gigantism, he rose from Thracian shepherd to emperor through military prowess alone. Ancient sources claim he drank 7 gallons of wine daily and ate 40 pounds of meat. His thumb was too large for his wife's bracelets. Becoming emperor in 335 AD after murdering Alexander Severus, Maximinus never entered Rome during his 3-year reign. He viewed civilians as cattle for funding armies. He doubled taxes, then tripled them. When funds ran low, he melted temple treasures and statues, including Jupiter Capitolinus's golden decorations. His paranoia about his peasant origins drove mass executions of aristocrats. He killed anyone who mentioned his past, including friends who knew him as shepherd. Entire senatorial families were eliminated. Children burned alive, women raped by soldiers, then executed. He supposedly drank victims' blood, believing it increased strength. Maximinus personally led combat with Germanic tribes, allegedly killing 30 men single-handedly in one battle. But his army brutality horrified even hardened soldiers. He decimated legions for minor infractions, every 10th man beaten to death. He crucified deserters along roads for hundreds of miles. The empire erupted in rebellion. When Aquileia closed its gates in 238 AD, his starving army mutinied. Praetorian guards killed him and his son during siesta. Their heads were sent to Rome on pikes. His body was thrown to dogs. The Senate declared him enemies of state, ordering all images destroyed. Few survive today.
Diocletian. Gaius Aurelius Valerius Diocletianus was born December 22, 244 AD in Dalmatia. Rising through military ranks, he became emperor in 284 AD and created the Tetrarchy, dividing the empire between 4 rulers. While administratively brilliant, his Christian persecution was Rome's most systematic genocide, killing up to 20,000. The Great Persecution began February 23, 303 AD. Churches were demolished, scriptures burned, Christian property confiscated. Christians in government were enslaved. Refusing sacrifice to Roman gods meant death. Entire congregations were locked in churches and burned alive. In Phrygia, an entire Christian town was surrounded by soldiers and incinerated. Population 15,000. Diocletian's methods varied by region. In Palestine, eyes were gouged with swords then cauterized with boiling pitch. In Egypt, Christians were dismembered joint by joint over days. In Nicomedia, Christians were roasted on gridirons, salt and vinegar poured on burns. Children were thrown from cliffs before parents' eyes. His economic reforms destroyed millions through hyperinflation. The edict on maximum prices fixed costs under death penalty, causing black markets and starvation. Currency devaluation reached 15,000%. Taxes increased 900%. He instituted hereditary occupations, sons legally forced into fathers' professions, creating permanent castes. The persecution intensified until Diocletian's abdication in 305 AD, the only emperor to retire voluntarily. He spent final years growing cabbages in his split palace. When asked to return to power, he allegedly said, "If you could see my cabbages, you wouldn't ask." He died December 3, 311 AD, possibly by suicide after his wife and daughter were executed by successor Licinius.
Honorius. Flavius Honorius Augustus was born September 9, 384 AD. Becoming Western Roman Emperor at age 10 in 395 AD, he ruled during Rome's collapse, yet remained obsessed solely with his chicken collection. His reign marked not violent insanity, but criminal incompetence that destroyed the Western Empire. Honorius spent his entire reign in Ravenna's marshes, protected by swamps, while Rome burned. He maintained 20,000 chickens, personally naming each one. His favorite, named Roma, received more attention than the actual city. When told Rome had fallen to Visigoths in 1010 AD, he panicked, thinking his chicken died. Learning it was just the city, he returned to feeding birds. His paranoia destroyed Rome's last competent defender. General Stilicho saved the empire repeatedly from barbarian invasions. Honorius had him executed in 408 AD on false treason charges, along with Stilicho's son and thousands of barbarian federal soldiers' families. The surviving 30,000 soldiers immediately joined Alaric's Visigothic army. During the 410 AD siege, Romans resorted to cannibalism. Mothers cooked dead children. Honorius refused negotiation from Ravenna, more concerned with chicken breeding experiments. The Eternal City fell for first time in 800 years. Slaves opened gates to Visigoths just to end starvation. He killed any general showing competence, fearing rivals. His sister, Galatacidia, was taken hostage by Visigoths. Honorius refused ransom for 3 years. When finally returned, he developed sexual obsession with her, forcing marriage proposals until she fled. He died August 15, 423 AD from dropsy. No heir existed. The chicken coops were immediately destroyed.
Constantius II, Flavius Julius Constantius, was born August 7, 317 AD in Illyricum. Son of Constantine the Great, he inherited the Eastern Empire in 337 AD after a family massacre he orchestrated. He murdered 2 uncles, 7 cousins, and his brother-in-law, sparing only 2 child cousins deemed too young as threats. His paranoia surpassed even Domitian's. He employed thousands of agentes en rebus, secret police who reported private conversations. Dreams about the emperor were treasonous. He executed his advisor Gallus for becoming too popular, his wife Eusebia for suspected adultery, and countless officials for imagined plots. Torture chambers operated continuously in palace basements. Constantius's religious obsession with Arianism caused Christianity's first major schism. He exiled Pope Liberius, installed anti-Pope Felix II, and called councils that reversed previous councils. He executed bishops who refused his theological interpretations. While Christians fought Christians, he allowed pagans to be murdered freely. Thousands died in temple destructions. His court ceremonies required elaborate prostration. Visitors crawled on stomachs, kissed his purple boots, and couldn't raise eyes. He never smiled, moved, or showed emotion publicly. Chroniclers described him as living statue. During his Rome visit, he didn't blink during entire triumph parade, believing movement showed weakness. Military incompetence matched his paranoia. He lost every major battle against the Persians, then celebrated imaginary victories.
His jealousy of cousin Julian's actual victories led to civil war. On November 3, 361 AD, while marching against Julian, he died of fever at 44. His last words were reportedly about proper genuflection angles. Julian reversed all his religious policies within weeks.
Valens. Flavius Julius Valens Augustus was born 328 AD in Pannonia. His brother, Valentinian I, appointed him Eastern Emperor in 364 AD, despite complete lack of qualifications. Valens's combination of incompetence, paranoia, and cruelty triggered the disaster that began Rome's final collapse. His paranoia manifested through mass executions for minor offenses. Anyone with names starting with Theod was killed because fortune-tellers predicted a Theodorus would succeed him. He burned alive philosophers, including Simonides, who was roasted in his own library. Magic trials executed thousands. Owning books about mathematics was proof of sorcery. Valens persecuted Catholics while supporting Arianism. He exiled bishops to desert islands, drowned monks in the Orontes River, and burned a ship carrying 80 priests. In Antioch, he ordered Catholics branded on their faces with hot irons. When Constantinople's Catholics resisted, he planned mass deportation, but Gothic crisis intervened. His greed caused Rome's worst military catastrophe. In 376 AD, 200,000 Gothic refugees sought asylum from the Huns. Valens admitted them, but appointed corrupt officials who sold dog meat at gold prices to starving Goths, enslaved their children, and demanded sexual favors from women for food. When Goths rebelled, Valens refused negotiation. At Adrianople on August 9, 378 AD, Valens's incompetence destroyed two-thirds of the Eastern army. 20,000 Romans died. Wounded by arrow, he was burned alive in a peasant hut where soldiers carried him. His body was never found. The defeat opened frontiers permanently. Goths never left Roman territory again, beginning the migrations that ended the Western Empire.
Theodosius II. Flavius Theodosius Jr. was born April 10, 401 AD in Constantinople. Becoming Eastern Emperor at age 7 in 408 AD, he ruled for 42 years through total disengagement. While not violently insane, his pathological weakness in religious obsession enabled disasters that crippled the Eastern Empire. Theodosius spent his reign copying religious manuscripts in perfect calligraphy while his empire crumbled. He produced over 30,000 pages personally, working from dawn to noon daily. His sister Pulcheria and wife Eudocia actually ruled, conducting affairs while he transcribed scripture. Courtiers called him the calligrapher emperor. His religious fanaticism destroyed classical civilization. He banned all pagan philosophy schools, burned libraries containing dangerous Greek texts, and made heresy punishable by death. The Theodosian Code instituted religious totalitarianism, 65 laws against heretics, 25 against Jews. He paid mobs to destroy the Serapeum of Alexandria, losing 400,000 irreplaceable scrolls. Theodosius's weakness invited invasions. He paid Attila the Hun 6,000 pounds of gold annually, tripling taxes to afford tribute. When Attila demanded more, he sent assassins who failed comically. Attila sent the would-be killer back with sarcastic letters. The humiliation required doubling tribute to 12,000 pounds. His only decisive action was murdering his friend Paulinus. Suspecting him of sleeping with Empress Eudocia, Theodosius personally strangled him during a prayer session. On July 28, 450 AD, he fell from his horse while hunting and broke his spine. He died 2 days later at 49. His successor immediately stopped Hun tribute, proving Theodosius's cowardice was choice, not necessity.
Justinian II. Rhinot Meados, which means slit nose, was born 669 AD in Constantinople. Becoming Byzantine emperor at 16 in 685 AD, his first reign showed promise, until paranoia and sadism led to his overthrow, mutilation, and eventual return for history's bloodiest revenge. His first reign became increasingly tyrannical.
He created the first religious police force, executing anyone who didn't venerate icons properly. He moved 250,000 Slavs to Anatolia, half died during forced march. When they rebelled, he killed every man, woman, and child, reportedly 100,000. His tax collectors were authorized to torture and kill on suspicion. In 695 AD, a coup led by Leontios overthrew him. Instead of execution, they slit his nose and tongue, believing mutilation prevented ruling again. Exiled to Cherson in Crimea, he wore a golden nose prosthesis and spent 10 years planning revenge. He escaped through sewers during storms, lived with Khazars, married their king's sister, and named his son Tiberius, after the paranoid emperor he admired. Returning in 705 AD, hidden in a water barrel, Justinian II reclaimed power with Bulgar army assistance. His revenge was unprecedented. He executed Leontios and Tiberius III in the Hippodrome by standing on their necks for an hour while crowds watched. He blinded the patriarch, hanged soldiers from the city walls, and drowned hundreds of aristocrats in weighted sacks. The second reign was pure vengeance. He sent armies to destroy Ravenna and Cherson completely, every inhabitant killed. On December 11, 711 AD, soldiers finally killed him and his 6-year-old son. His head was displayed on spikes across the empire. He was 42 years old.
Constantine V, Copronymus, which means dung-named, was born September 7, 1718 AD in Constantinople. The nickname came from defecating in baptismal font as an infant, an omen of his reign. Becoming emperor in 741 AD, he combined military genius with religious persecution that killed tens of thousands of Christians. His iconoclasm exceeded all predecessors. He didn't just ban religious images, he systematically destroyed 400 years of Christian art. Monks were forced to marry prostitutes in the Hippodrome or be blinded and exiled. He burned monasteries with monks inside. The patriarch was beaten to death, his replacement executed for secret icon ownership. Constantine's sadism appeared in creative punishments. He force-fed priests their own excrement mixed with their smashed icons. Nuns were stripped naked, paraded through Constantinople, then forcibly married to soldiers or executed. He buried alive monks who refused to spit on Christ's image. Children reporting icon-venerating parents received rewards. His paranoia killed thousands of aristocrats. He revived the ancient practice of blinding, red-hot metal plates pressed against eyes. He introduced nose slitting as standard punishment. His personal militia, the Sholai, tortured victims in palace basements. Screams supposedly kept him calm during administrative work. Despite brutality, Constantine was Rome's most successful military emperor in centuries, crushing Bulgars and Arabs repeatedly. He died of fever on September 14, 775 AD while campaigning. Iconophiles exhumed his corpse, burned it, and scattered ashes in the sea. Yet common people mourned him for military victories. His name became so hated that no Byzantine emperor ever used Constantine again, despite its prestigious origins.
Tiberius Claudius Nero was born November 16, 42 BC. Augustus forced him to divorce his beloved wife Vipsania to marry Julia, Augustus's daughter. This destroyed something in Tiberius. Ancient sources note he once followed Vipsania through Rome weeping. He became emperor at 55 in 14 AD, already bitter and paranoid. Initially a capable administrator, Tiberius left Rome permanently in 26 AD for Capri. From this island fortress, he ruled through terror. His infamous treason trials executed hundreds of senators. Children were tortured for information about parents. The delatores, professional informers, received 1/4 of victims' estates, creating an industry of false accusations.